So I was a journalist based in Venezuela. I lived through this absurd hyperinflation. I covered corruption. I covered all these incredible things in Venezuela. One of the things I noticed was how absurd the economy was. I had no interest in economics beforehand, but it was so fascinating to me that people were smuggling pasta across the border. Engineers were smuggling pasta across the border. People were fighting over loaves of bread. It was just, and the government was printing so much money, and prices were changing every day. It really gave me an idea of why economics was important. So I wrote some code to get economic data out of the Venezuelan government, which is not easy at all. I got it out, I showed people, and 1,000 people found that interesting. And now I've realised, hey, there's value in that in the rest of the world, so I've set up a company. I grew up near London. I went to school, went to university, I studied physics. I was very fascinated by physics at the time. I didn't at that point want to do physics professionally, and I wanted to do journalism. I wanted to fly around the world. So I left university and went abroad and worked as a freelance journalist for about 4 years. That in itself is such a, freelance journalism can be so many things, not just the geography, obviously, but what you do, how you do it, and so on. So I started off not really knowing what I was doing, and got better, and worked for bigger news outlets and did better stuff, and so on. I found I certainly pivoted in sort of what I thought I wanted to do when I was 21, 25, and then again, as things went on. And then I joined Reuters after that period of freelancing, and that really gave me the opportunity to do, and I didn't do it just because I didn't like freelance journalism or because I wanted a job. It was actually just such a phenomenal job. They just let me go and investigate. It was a great salary, a great budget to just go and do journalism, which is really rare nowadays. And that was wonderful. And I did it in a place that I'd got to know and understand over the years. And that allowed me to hopefully do it better than I would have done otherwise. So that was wonderful. However, I sort of got a little bit bored of that. Not so much bored, maybe isn't the right word. Again, the word bored there encompasses so many different emotions and things and facts and thoughts and so on. I decided, no, this isn't quite working for me. And what I realised is that part of my reporting is not just the tramping through jungles, putting on flak jackets and covering protests, or doing big corruption things. It's genuinely understanding and not speaking to people and so on. It's fundamental to that. But I also wanted to understand the numbers. I had a background in numbers, and this country's suffering this horrible, awful hyperinflation, and it's just incredible to live through. It really gives you an idea of what is money? What is the idea? What is this thing we're transacting? What is it when I give you something and you give me something in return? What's £10 in my pocket today compared to £10 in my bank account today, or £10 in my bank account tomorrow? It's completely different meanings here. That's really fascinating. So I wrote some code to work through these numbers, just basically understand them and put them on a graph on the website, and just left them there. And just loads of people started using it. They found it really useful. And it wasn't anything special. We're talking half a dozen lines of code that a 12-year-old could write. But hey, they were being found useful, and I found that also they were faster than a lot of big proper data outlets, big proper data companies. So I sort of started speaking to these people and said, well, what is it that you find interesting about this? Why are you using this when you've got, frankly, all the money in the world to get data from whoever you want? They liked the look of it, they liked the speed, there was something they liked about it, and I asked if they'd want that for other markets and not just Venezuela, and they would. So that's what I'm doing now. I've started this company, which is, the idea is to get data out to just people so that they understand. For example, here in Venezuela, the government's just printing huge amounts of money, and actually a lot of news stories that talk about hyperinflation don't mention the money printing bit, maybe because the journalists don't know where to find the data or so on, but we all know from high school that what causes hyperinflation is it's money printing. And the government does publish data here, and so I'm trying to get that out, and that's essentially journalism. Whether you get it through an iPhone app or through the front page of the New York Times is sort of irrelevant, especially now. So now it's coming through my iPhone app, and then people are looking at it, and they're either saying, they're either reading it and saying, wow, that's incredible, this government's awful, or they're making investment decisions on it. And the latter, there's money now, that's where the business is. So I'm hoping that side of it can sort of fund the rest of it, and this will become business. So it's at that early stage. It's funny that we're talking about success, because at the moment I'm sort of at the least successful point in my life. At school you're sort of fine, successful, you're talking, you're doing math, you're having friends, and things are okay. You go to university and you're successful, you're having fun, and you pass your degree, whatever. Then you get into sort of, I don't want to say the real world, because that's meaningless. It's a completely different meaning to different people. But and you start, you're starting your career, so your early 20s. Well, you don't need to be successful yet. Whereas now, hey, I'm a bit older. I'm 32. I was 32 the other day. I'm suddenly okay. Well, now I should be a success. I should have my established thing. And I don't, in a way, because I've sort of thrown it all away. I've left journalism, I've left physics. I'm starting a new company, which is not successful by any metric. I don't know. Is it successful just by being? Is it successful just by, I don't know. There's lots of things that we'll talk about in terms of what success is in all of those realms. But it's funny that you caught me at this time, which is my least successful point in life. We'll see where it goes, and we'll see how I both now analyse previous successes or failures and future ones, and I'm sure that will change over time as well.
Definitely, and Girish, we have to catch up. Seriously, a year's time we have to do the whole thing again, because I know so much is going to happen for you.
Well, yeah, and that's definitely a given that so much is going to happen. How I look at it and how I see it and how you see it, and no idea, absolutely no idea.
So with DataDrum, which is this company, would you say that it's a form of digital journalism, or is that going to be with it?
Yeah, I mean, the journalism industry is very, and this is actually one of the reasons I wanted to leave it. It's very sort of. It is starting to move forward. It's starting to think about technology. It's starting to think about data. It's starting to understand the value of maths and code and so on. But it's so far behind, and it's so full of people just aren't part of that world. Either because it's legacy and old rich folk, which is old rich men who ran it in bygone days, and still sort of are there in legacy terms, or humanities students who aren't part of that world. So it is going that way, but it's very slow. Is this a sort of journalism? Well, yeah, journalism is getting something that you try and analyse and get the truth out of and getting it out to people. So of course, yeah. Is it a finance app? Well, I guess it can be as well. It depends who the end user is. It's a bit of everything, and I think what we've got to be careful of doing, especially nowadays, is not really putting it in a box. It started as a little hobby. It's obviously more than a hobby now, or hopefully will become more than a hobby. We don't really need to define it just yet, I don't think. And if it ends up making a lot more money from the finance side than the journalism side, which is probably likely, does that make it more of a finance app than journalism? Well, not necessarily. I mean, Bloomberg and Reuters, they both do great journalism, but they make their money not from journalism at all. And that's also why they do make money, whereas journalism generally doesn't. So yeah, I would call it a form of journalism. Absolutely. It helps explain the world to people. Absolutely.
And what countries is DataDrum available in at the moment, or what's the data to analyse from which countries?
So basically, at the moment, it's getting. I'm trying to get the key things from. So here, for example, in Venezuela, prices, inflation, black market exchange rates, the money printing by the government, that sort of thing. In South Sudan, it's very different. They're interested in different things there. In Ivory Coast, cashew production or whatever. It's not trying to focus on Switzerland, Germany, France, the US, where data is very easy to get hold of. There are very good people analysing it. It's trying to focus on countries where it's very difficult. The data is sort of there, and you just have to really pick at it and try and get what's right and clean it up. And I'm trying to do that programmatically. That's the whole point. So at the moment, we've got Ivory Coast, we've got Ukraine, we've got Greece, we've got Venezuela, Brazil, Mexico, but we're adding new countries every day. And hopefully this will come to a stage where we've both got a breadth of countries, a breadth of data that's actually useful and interesting to people, be they people on the street or people in the financial world on Wall Street, and doing it properly as well. There's a lot of companies out there that don't do it very well, and that of course applies to journalism as well, traditional journalism as well.
With your background, you can see really what the problems were and how they can be solved, certainly within the journalism world, but also within the finance to some extent, because finance and also investments is based on journalism. So what you hear in the press and that sort of general feeling and mood.
Absolutely, and that's what I realised I've been able to do in Venezuela. I wanted to understand. I came to Venezuela. I left university, wanted to be this foreign correspondent. It's very sort of swashbuckling, travel the world, and and all these great things. I did that. I'm really happy with that. But I also realised, that actually let's really understand this. Let's really understand what's going on. And my background was physics. I do get numbers, and so bringing those two together, I'm so glad I studied physics. It just allows you to do. I didn't do this because it allowed me to do this. This is in hindsight. It just allows you to do anything. It allows me to be I think it genuinely helps my writing. It helps my investigations. It certainly helps me coding and and understanding data. So I'm really glad that So bringing those two together, and then of course, like you said, the finance world, well, they want information. They just want it in a clear way, and hopefully those three things together will provide that.
And where do you see the future going? So DataDrum now it's started. It's what, about 6 months, a year old?
Yeah. So what I'm trying not to do is say, right, tomorrow we're going to launch and it's going to be huge overnight, because I've realised actually that it just doesn't work like that. Originally I've learned a huge amount starting a company. It's incredible. I have so much respect now for, everything you learn, you gain respect for people who do it day in, day out. You start programming, you realise every tiny facet of that tiny basic iPhone application, which looks to be perhaps actually quite complex. There's a lot of stuff going on. And then you look at something like the Mac, which is so powerful and so much knowledge there. You learn something new. Starting a company is the same. There's so much to do, people to manage. These people who I'm starting to lead, and sometimes they're excellent. They know exactly what they're doing. They think outside the box. They've got new ideas. They want to use a new programming language. Wonderful. Actually, right now, can we just get this done, please? And I now see why, maybe I was difficult to manage at times when I was, hang on, why don't we do it like this? This is the way to do it. This would be so much more efficient and better in the long run and better for society and the world. When, of course, a manager has other pressures, which just, Girish, you've got 5 minutes to do this. But it's interesting, because I also don't want to fall into the trap of being too much on either side. I've got to say, okay, why do you want to do this? So people who are lazy, not so lazy, all these other things, how they work together, all these things. It's so interesting to learn. And then so where do I see it all going? Well, I'm going to be learning a lot more. I couldn't give you a concrete, in 3 months we're going to IPO and so on. I would hope that within 3 months we'd have a proper launch. Currently everything's available, but we're not really talking about it publicly too much. We're not advertising at all. Basically, I want everything to work and all the bugs and all the issues to happen now. And then we start rolling in big customers. I'd hope that within 6 months we actually had a few big customers, paying a few tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and actually get some money coming in, and then have more people than just me and another. I don't want to be. It's really nice to look over every line of code, but it's not feasible when it's when you're trying to do something bigger. So I'd like to have a structure in place whereby I'm not looking after every line of code, but also I'm confident enough to know that it's good and it's what I want and so on. And having people who are better than me at programming that doing this, that I can really trust, and that's part of building a company. So I hope it gets bigger. I hope it does make some profit. I also hope it's very different to a lot of other outlets. It's not quite a traditional journalism outlet. There's obviously no newspaper. There's no news stories per se in the traditional sense. But it's also not just a boring finance app. There's more to it than that, and I want it to be its own thing, which is great. But the danger of that is that you've got no sort of structure or anything to. I want to be just like Bloomberg. Well, that's you go for that. That's your target. But I don't want to be just like Bloomberg. I don't just want to be like someone else. So I've got to sort of let it work out what it is over time as well, and show people. And they say, well, that's rubbish. I don't want that, or I do want that, and then you've got to realise, well, actually, some people who do want something. Well, maybe that isn't what they want, and they don't always tell you what they want because they don't know themselves. I think it's true, but that there's that famous line from Henry Ford. It was what's the famous line? So I don't think it's true. I think it's been demonstrated not to be his line, but someone says that he said that if you ask people what they want, they'd say a faster horse. And so you've got to really think about, okay, what do I actually want this to be? What do I want it to be as well? Well, if all my customers say, actually, Girish, forget the journalism, we want this to be a boring financial app, maybe I have to say, well, all right, that's not what I want. And maybe that will make me more money, but that's not quite what I want, so let's try and steer it another way, which maybe won't make money, or maybe will make money, but not as much. I don't know, and that's what we're going to have to play with.
So this is interesting. It goes very much back to it's not what you want. So would you say that success is achieving what you want? So that sense that you could get, a massive financial bank that says, yes, we want this purely for finance, but it's not something. It's not your success. It wouldn't be your success that way because it's not what you envisage to be. So therefore, you may make so much money, but it wouldn't be a success because it's not where you want to take it.
Well, this is it. So what is success? And I think it's so ill defined. In a way, it can't be defined. I mean, is it something that society sort of, both requires from you or asks from you? And that you have these ideas of what success is. You get a good degree, you get a good job, you earn $100,000, whatever. or is it, and that's just quite simplistic to say that, that's obviously society has an effect on you, or is success just you saying, hey, I just want to be happy? Well, yes and no, because happiness is sort of coupled with the previous thing, right? You're happy because society wants you, I'm wearing this shirt because society says that's what I should be wearing today, right? There's a reason for that. Am I happy wearing the shirt? Yeah, it's fairly nice. I'm happy wearing the shirt because society says it's good and I'm happy, they're happy, everyone's happy, great. Is that successful? All right, yeah, it's fine. Would I prefer not to be wearing a shirt? Whatever, there's all these different things. That's a very, very simple thing. Now, was I a successful physicist? Well, I enjoyed my degree. I remember, learning these. I remember genuinely understanding how Maxwell's equations works. And I thought that was fantastic. I really understood it. When I first understood the difference between current and voltage, it wasn't really until the higher levels that you really understand that. It's great. Or was it that I got a good mark at the end? Was it that my master's project was published? Which element of it was successful? Or was it a complete failure? Because actually, I spent most of that time going out, enjoying Manchester, and and focusing on journalism. I was doing student journalism and so on. So in that sense, you can say, well, actually, Girish was useless at his degree because he got stuff done, he got an okay mark, but actually he did other stuff. Then you look at my freelance journalism. Well, was that a success? Well, yeah. Girish wrote for the best news outlets in the world. He did big investigations. He made loads of money. He flew around the world. He was top tier on all the airlines and so on. Is that what I wanted? I remember I did and it was that good journalism. That's the other thing, I remember I did. I went on a trip, and it was towards the end of my freelance journalism time, and it was nice. I was there for about a week. I did one nice feature for the New York Times, one nice feature for Reuters, a few photos for other people, a few radio pieces, and great. They're all nice stories. It was all fine, nothing groundbreaking. And a friend of mine said to me, "Oh, that was really good. It's nice bunch of stuff you did, and nice bunch of things you did on your trip." I said, what I'm really pleased with is that I managed to earn $500 a day and cover all my expenses. And that, for me, was success at that point. So I was thinking, well, does that align with why I went into journalism? Well, no, I wanted to change the world. I wanted to, do all these great things. Now, if I'm measuring it by having earned a decent amount of money and so on, then maybe something's not right. And maybe the logical conclusion of that is that I go and work at hedge funds because there it's much simpler, right? You just earn money, and there's something quite pure about that measure of success. It's there's a number, you make that number as high as possible, and you make it higher than the person next to you, and that there's something really pure and wonderful about that. Obviously, there's other issues with that, in terms of the externalities of capitalism and whether that's what you actually want in life, and probably not definitely not in my case, not the sole thing I want. But there is something pure about that. It allows you to measure it properly. Now, was my freelance journalism success? Well, yeah, by a lot of measures, yes. By my own measure, I don't know. It was fine. I did all the things I sort of wanted to do, but then the things I wanted to do changed over time as well. Now, I also realised that the journalism industry wasn't necessarily what I thought it was. Is it better to have a huge front page story on the New York Times that's actually quite mediocre, doesn't really say much, maybe just wraps up the last few weeks of work, that everyone reads, everyone in New York media reads, all your friends read, or they see you on, primetime BBC talking about something, standing up wearing a shirt and, with a nice background, and talking about the news, whereas you're not actually saying anything that profound. You're just sort of talking about what you know and learn. Obviously, there's skill in that, but it's nothing new. Or is there more value in doing a really well thought out, really smart, conceptually, beautifully reported, beautifully written, deeply investigated story for Reuters, which frankly is terrible at marketing, really looks at it. Is there more value in that? Well, I decided when I took that job there was more value in that. I actually had a couple of options. I was very lucky, and I chose Reuters because it did better journalism. The other place was far more famous, and Wall Street Journal was far more famous and well known, and had far more prestige. But the journalism I didn't think was quite was high at a high level. I didn't think the budget was big enough. I didn't think these things. So I joined Reuters, and it was fantastic. But then, was my journalism a success? Well, no one read it. It wasn't on the front page of the New York Times. It wasn't. And so you've really got to. So I had to make these decisions as well. So it was all about success, right? Which part of it is successful? Is it doing real solid journalism that no one's reading? In fact, and to put it to extremes, solid journalism that no one's reading, or mediocre journalism that everyone's reading. Have I been successful? Well, I don't know, and I don't think I should care either. I don't think you should care. I don't think. Oh no. Also, how dare you suggest whether I've been successful? Like, you have no idea what my aims are, and nor does anyone else, and nor does anyone else in society. But that's not quite right either, is it? Because we're all like, I'm wearing this shirt today because I want to appear successful. I want to appear normal, and I don't know. And it's something like it's all about the group around you ultimately. When you're if you're living in a, I don't know, just looking out the window now, I can see one of the world's poorest slums just across the city here. If you're sat there, you do not see Girish as a success. Well, I suppose Girish has got more money, just by virtue of being from a richer country. But the degree, all these things are pretty meaningless to someone there. Success there might be, it could be anything. It could be being able to look after your family. It could be having killed it could be revenge. I remember actually in Iraq, in Qayyada, which was held by, it's near Mosul, it was held by Islamic State until about a couple of years ago, I can't remember the dates, but I was there about a few months afterwards, and I remember a guy, really elderly guy, who was telling me about one of his sons who was killed by ISIS. And he pulled out his phone. I said, he was going to show me a photo of the kid, and I said, very sad and so on. He did. He pulled a photo out, and it was another man holding a head, a decapitated head. And what was this? And it was basically his other son had found the guy who killed his other son and got revenge. And for him, that was the great success. That was what he was showing off. He didn't care about showing me a picture of his son. That wasn't the point. It was about, we got him back. Yeah, okay, that's his vision of success, and in that climate, well, yeah, and maybe across the city here, if someone is massively high murder rate in this country, maybe success is seen by some gang members. Yeah, you got revenge on someone, and now you're more successful. You can steal more cars, kidnap more people, whatever. You go to a science institution, a university or something, success is seen very different. You go to a Wall Street, and success is seen very differently. You go to a bunch of kids in the playground, and it's the one who can run fastest, or shout loudest, or make the teacher do whatever. It's anything. So it's all quite relative. And then you've got to sort of think, well, where do I want to fit into this? Do I want to fit into the journalism world, which is right? I've got to win a Pulitzer. I don't care if the story's good or bad. I've got to market myself and do all the right things to win the Pulitzer, or be on the front page of the New York Times. Or in science, and I don't know science as well, but do I have to do everything I've got to do to win a Nobel Prize, no matter what that means for the people around me, what that means for genuine science that I'm doing? Or do I just want to go and live in a cave and not care about all this? And I'm sort of leaning towards the latter at the moment. But then also that's obviously got its own issues, right? You're never going to be satisfied, as you say, because in the cave you don't have any external input, so you're sort of in your own world. So I'm sure I'll come out thinking some very strange things because no one's interacted with me. Well, told me that, hey, Girish, that thing isn't that successful. What are you thinking about that theory you have? I don't know. What do we do with it? There's so many issues here, and there's so much politics and all these other issues which are part of success, which I don't know. We've got to think very carefully and not get trapped in this world of being successful for other people, but also being aware that, well, there is value in seeing what other people think.
Okay, so we met in a bookshop.
Yes.
And you recommended probably some of the best books I've ever read.
Oh, that's kind.
What would you say your top 3 books now?
Oh, okay. Okay, very good. Actually, I'll give you a very solid answer to that. Solid in the sense I'm not wavering too much. I'm very sure of this. Have you read *Sapiens*?
Yeah.
You must know of it. So he wrote *Sapiens*. He wrote follow-up. I can't remember the name of. Yeah, and then he's written a third book, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. Now, they're all essentially the same book. And I don't say that in too disparaging a way. I do understand the desire to make money and so on, but they do. I think there's value in reading them all because their thoughts evolve. And there's value in seeing that in an author and someone who's genuinely thinking about something. And his books, I really like them because he really does think through things. He sees things in a very clear-cut way. He writes very smartly in the sense that he grabs your attention. He's very persuasive as a writer, slightly too persuasive, if anything. But I remember the first line in his latest book is something like, and the first line just grabs me, which is quite rare. And it was just something like, Humans don't think in terms of don't think rationally in terms of numbers and math. They think in terms of stories and narratives. And that's something I've obviously dealt with through my time as a journalist, and that's actually one of the frustrations I had with journalism, that, well, actually, we could paint this the way we wanted. Not everything, obviously. If someone kills someone, if a country is going through absurd hyperinflation like this, well, obviously there's objective. This is not good. But profiles, that sort of thing, quotes, cherry picking quotes, it's all about narratives and stuff. And actually, with my physics background, it's very much, well, hey, if your equation works out, you're right. If it doesn't work out, you're wrong. And that's pretty much it. Obviously not socially, but as a fundamental, if your math's wrong, well, go away. But that's not quite the case in journalism, which I found very frustrating. So and then obviously the book extends on that thought and goes a lot deeper. And I like that. I like his way of looking at society and how. Basically he's highlighting things that you don't quite see because you're in it. He's highlighting actually this idea of nation states. What does it mean? It means nothing. Of course, it means nothing. And he goes through the history of that, but also the philosophy of that, and why it's actually a good thing. Why religion is actually, he doesn't believe in it at all. He doesn't believe in God and so on. But he said, religion is the one thing that's allowed humans to come together and achieve things and achieve civilizations and so on. And actually he says that one of the things that could really help going forward as technology and maybe my app and AI and all these things take over manual labor and sort of both menial jobs and non-menial jobs as well. As AI gets better, you can have a huge workforce huge unemployment maybe. Religion might be the one thing that sort of stops, that keeps society sane and keeps it going. I don't know. I'm not pretending to have thought about this at any deep level, but I think it's really interesting to read that sort of analysis. And the other one is sort of in the same vein. It's Steve Pinker, and he wrote Enlightenment Now a couple of years ago maybe, and I've not read the follow-up yet. It's next. And Bill Gates called these the best books he's ever read, which meant that Steve Pinker just shot to the top of the bestseller charts. And the one thing I really like about Steve Pinker is that he just goes so in depth. It's sort of a similar vein to Sapiens in that series. But he's a lot more, I feel, analytical. He's a more clear writer in the sense he's not being as manipulative is way too strong a word for Sapiens. It's not manipulative at all. It's thought out. It's persuasive. Whereas Steve Pinker is much more sort of scientific and clear, and that requires, I think, really great intellect. And again, he does a similar sort of thing. He uses data, uses more data, I think, to just to look at these things, look at societies, look at how they evolve, look at what's going on in the world. And his thesis, which is frankly pretty obvious and quite boring, is that society is better now than it has been in the past. Which, yeah, is obvious. I'm sat here on a laptop talking to you. I'm not being killed by mobs outside. We have society, we have internet, we have food and so on. It's a pretty basic thesis, but he uses that to just go so deep into so many things. I loved how deep he went, but did it in such an engaging way, in a smart way, a genuinely smart and analytical way, rather than necessarily trying to, just over a lot of these. This is why I hate reading opinion pieces and so on. They're just often so vacuous, and he was just the opposite. It was so well written, so thought out, so data driven. I thought it was very good. I can see why someone like Bill Gates, who's obviously a very not obviously actually, so I don't know him, but presumably a very smart analytical person. I can see why he would like that. The Innovators by Walter Isaacson. He used to be a big editor at CNN and then Time and so on. I don't really know, I've not seen interviews with him. I don't know him, but the book itself I thought was really interesting. Now and it wasn't marketed as this at all because it would have sold 0 copies. It's basically a history of computing, and so it sounds really dull, and they didn't put that on the cover. But it's so well done. It really just goes through all these people who just basically understood this new world of computers and math and so on, could apply it and built these things. And some of them were very successful, like Bill Gates was very successful, made a huge amount of money, changed computing globally and so on. Now, does he consider himself successful? Who knows? You can talk to him and work that out. Other people who were probably doing even smarter things than Bill Gates, but maybe didn't do the business side as well. So just failed. Apple, of course, all these companies that were built up from that, and how they did it. And it's a really nice look at that, and I don't know, it's given me a real appreciation for what's happening now. It's very much a history; it doesn't really go forward, but it's a real history of it goes all the way back to Walter Allen Lovelace and the first Charles Babbage and all these first computers, Alan Turing and so on. It just really sort of gets you to now and understand what we're doing here, and sort of then lets you think about where we're going. And that's a nice precursor to something like 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, which then obviously looks a lot more forward.